it's about time we talk about NATO. I'm gonna get the board. It's good exercise. I'm gonna use a Paquito chalk because we all know when I toss it, I break it in 50,000 pieces, and I don't want to keep wasting it. NATO stands for the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, created 1949. Now I'm gonna go through its 5 major purposes not 5, only 4, sometimes math's hard. It was created in 1949, and then the shift that happened after the collapse of the Soviet Union. Number 1, collective defense. Don't talk about my S, that's how Canadians spell it. Now, collective defense is based in Article 5. And to sum this up, you attack my friends, we all attack you, right? It's collective security, all for one, one for all. Very Robin Hood in the Cold War era. Do you understand what I'm saying right now? P.S., and this becomes important later, the United States of America is the only one country to actually invoke Article 5 right after 9/11. No other country has done it, yet everybody came to their defense when they called. Number 2, deterrence. So NATO was a collection of states whose primary goal was to stop the spread and the expansion of the Soviet Union. The more people that were in NATO, hopefully for NATO, the less likely the Soviet Union would push and encroach on their territory. The Soviet Union had their own team. They were called the Warsaw Pact. Continue. Before I continue, understand when it was created, right? 1914, post-World War II. Right after World War II ended, the world stepped into what's known as the Cold War, where you have 2 superpowers, the United States and the Soviet Union, battling it out for territory and control and strategic significance in the world. Thus the 2 teams and all of the deterrence. Most of the deterrence was actually laid at the feet of nuclear weapons, where both sides escalated arms. They created something called mutually assured destruction. They fire, we fire, we are all done. At the height of the Cold War, there was enough nuclear weaponry in the world to kill the world 10 times over. And still, only one country's ever used it. Number 3, political integration. I'm going to try to say this without laughing, okay? The political integration aspect of NATO was to try to minimize, to try to lessen the nationalistic militarism of countries in Europe so we wouldn't have another world war. The funny part about this is, who was stopping the United States from being nationalistic and militaristic? Because all I see is an ongoing of the same thing, but at least they're sitting at the head of the table. But this political integration is actually quite important, okay? So the political integration is making sure that all NATO allies, originally there were 12 major countries, now it's expanded, all major allies were on the same page politically. Who's our enemy? How are we going to stop them? How are we going to contain them? How are we going to cease and diminish the domino theory of countries becoming Soviet states? Number 4, I'm going to try to say this without laughing, democratic values. Now, NATO was always framed as being an organization that was going to uphold democracy and support democracy throughout the world. However, when you pit NATO against the Warsaw Pact, the United States against the Soviet Union, what you come to understand is it's not a war. The Cold War wasn't a war of ideology when it comes to politics. It was a war of ideology when it comes to economics. So there have been NATO nations that are dictatorships, that do abuse human rights. But the key thing that they always are, I'm going to tell you right now, capitalist. Buckle up, it's about to get worse. You know that guy on TikTok that does that dotted line with his hand? Maybe we should try that later. Whoa, focus for now. Now, over time, NATO has evolved. The first step was the Cold War era. And this era is determined by the idea of creating a nuclear umbrella. But then we move into the post-Cold War era. When the Soviet Union collapsed in 89-90, you had independent nations forming all over the world, you had conflicts forming all over the world, and you saw NATO being used and wielded in order to have peacemaking operations. I'd say peacekeeping, but it really wasn't peacekeeping, because small insurgencies were popping up everywhere. This is a big shift, even before I get to the 21st century, because you have to know, if NATO was created to contain the Soviet Union and stop the spread of communism, when the communist country fell, it should have disbanded. We should have created a different organization in order to have militaristic and economic cooperation. But we didn't. We just shifted it a little bit, not as much as we shifted in the 21st century. 21st century. Post 9/11. Post 9/11, everything changes for the United States and changes for NATO. It shifts its focus to counter-terrorism. And this vague umbrella of them being able to jump into any country they deem appropriate, they define terrorism, they define when they go, how they go, what they do when they get there, with this general overview of terrorism as it impacts NATO states. This bears repeating. Still, 9/11 was the only time NATO ever invoked Article 5, and every member country came to the U.S. defense. That's important for about what's to happen next. Take notes on this last section, please. As of lately, the United States has been talking about how much money they pour into NATO and how unfair it is. So I'm going to go over why they do what they do and how it directly benefits and empowers the United States of America. What is the U.S. getting for their money? Number one, a global presence. It's through the U.S.'s NATO allies that they're able to have military bases all over the world and a significant military presence every country they step into. Number two, economics. Funding of NATO is based on a country's GDP, and the United States has a higher GDP than all of NATO combined. Therefore, the United States spends more money. Is the United States paying a higher percentage of their GDP to NATO or for the benefit of NATO? Of course they are, but they're doing it to maximize their own military capacity, not to help other NATO countries, and sure as hell not to protect them. They're utilizing this collective organization in order to instill their presence throughout the world, put them where they need to be, expand their military presence, and expand their power. That's why they're spending the money. Number three, essential capabilities. NATO relies on the United States and their high technical skill level and capabilities with satellites and integration. This makes the United States the pivotal point in any NATO mission. And number four, technological investment. A significant portion of U.S. investment into NATO goes into tech investment, so they have the best, the biggest, and the most powerful weaponry in order to control the world. Does that sound like they're getting rocked by NATO or running it?